welcome to the Unit 2 overview for our class, Gender and Justice, Gen 205. So you completed Unit number 1. It really was an introduction into feminisms. Now, Unit number 2, which is another 2-week unit, right? So take your time with it. Unit number 2 is getting more into intersectional feminisms and how intersectional feminisms relate to what we are calling in this class abolitionist feminism. So you're going to learn about and read about how these research and critiques and analysis using a feminist lens helps us understand the pervasiveness of the violences of the criminal justice system. Now, this class is focusing on feminist abolitionism, which is asking us to abolish the criminal justice system, to defund, to decarcerate, to destigmatize, to decolonize, right? But we're doing those actions in order to put those funds towards other, for example, community accountability and community support services. We are asking to demolish institutions that are sources of incredible amounts of violence and incredible amounts of violence towards an individual, and then how that also impacts that individual's family and that individual's community, right? So we are at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, so that's why we are critiquing the criminal justice system. If this were a medical school, pre-med, we'd be critiquing the medical system and the healthcare system, right? Because we are at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, I want to make sure that you leave here able to articulate, right, all the different ways we can talk about making the criminal justice system radically different, better, less violent, hopefully not violent at all, and really talking about alternative ways of engaging in care, accountability, right, and community. Okay, so I'm going to take us over to our Blackboard, and then we'll start to go through Unit number 2 together. So you will land, as always, on our home page that has everything that you will need. So when you land on the home page, right, you have the syllabus, you have our intro videos in case you forget, a little bit about how this course is organized, which makes sense, right? You're taking lots of other classes potentially as well as this one. It has the information on how to get a hold of me, and then our units. So unit number 2 goes from September 9th through the 17th, and it's really focusing on feminism and family, right? This right to family means safety from policing, and that's a really radical thing to say, especially at John Jay. So I encourage you to kind of stick with it as we go through the material together. This video will be right here. That will be your first task. Right? So there's 4 tasks total for this unit. Again, our theme focusing on feminist abolitionism and those connections with intersectional feminism. Abolitionism is an old school term. It's an old term. So people who were fighting against slavery, right, in the U.S. way back in the day, in the 1800s, abolitionism was a term to refer to the abolishment of slavery. Today, what you see are activists, like the Black Lives Matter activists, who continue to use terms like abolitionism to mean the eradication of all racist, violent forms of social political control, like the criminal justice system. Some people argue that the criminal justice system, these issues that we have of, police violence, police killings of Black people, of, deaths in our prisons, right? Over-policing in communities of color, that those are really, just a few bad apples, that it's about an individual, and those individuals are bad, and they just have to be removed from the system, and then the system will work better, less violent, and correctly. Abolitionists say no. The actual system itself is what needs to be changed. This criminal justice system is working as it is meant to. They see the criminal justice system as an evolution, right? An evolution of a racist, violent form of social control. Way back in the day, that was slavery. Then it changed to Jim Crow laws. Now we live in an era of what Black feminist scholars call the new Jim Crow, where instead of slavery, we have mass incarceration, over-policing, right? The United States incarcerates, puts in jails and prisons. We incarcerate people at incredibly high rates, at rates that do not match with other countries that we like to compare ourselves to, right? We are a highly carceral system. So this unit is going to explain how feminist abolitionism, right, by focusing on the desire to abolish, the demand to abolish the criminal justice system because it's so racist and violent and transphobic and sexist and homophobic, that feminist abolitionism is actually also about the right to have children, the right to have family. The right to not worry about your child being killed by the police is a reproductive justice goal, right? That is a feminist goal. So this video will be here. That'll be your first task, right? And then you'll go through these tasks. The second task is the discussion board post. You are finally going to jump into what our discussion boards are set up to do for the rest of the semester, okay? You'll click on Click to Launch, or you can open the task here. You'll find your group and click on it, and then click on the thread for unit number 2 and answer those questions. I encourage you to complete the discussion board in the middle of the unit, right? These are 2-week units, so try to complete the discussion board that first week as a way to break up the amount of work that you're doing. When you click here and get to the discussion board, right, we have our help, confusions, venting, what's happening, right? So we have this discussion board that you'll be able to see. And then you should see your organization, the organization that you have been assigned to study. So I'm just going to choose the Sylvia Rivera Law Project. And then you'll see the thread for unit number 2. So the threads will continue to build. I will make the threads, right, so that you can answer them. So you'll click on the thread for unit number 2. And what I'm asking everyone to do for their organization is to explore the links, which I've put, there in the forum description. I've also added them here. So explore the links for your organization, right? And then click reply so that you can answer these questions, right? So what is the mission of your organization? And name one specific thing that they do, a program, a service that they provide, an action. Perhaps there was a protest, a vigil, perhaps they were lobbying for a particular law to be changed at the city level or at the state level. So name that thing. Make sure it's not something that somebody else in your group has already picked, right? So the idea is that everyone will name something different, and that's how you're going to start to build your understanding of the Sylvia Rivera Law Project. I encourage you to, get creative and actually do a screenshot or a hyperlink so that we can easily find it ourselves, right? So for example, the Sylvia Rivera Law Project has their website, where they talk about all the things that they do, how people can get involved, the campaigns they do, the trainings they offer. It is a law project, so their main focus is on providing, right, legal assistance. If you're looking for the missions are often, around the About page. It might not say mission, it might say principles. Oh, there it is, and they actually say mission. So you can see, for example, the Sylvia Rivera Law Project works to guarantee that all people, but with a focus on LGBTQ+ people of color, are free to self-determine their gender identity and expression, regardless of income or race, without facing and dealing with harassment, discrimination, or violence from individuals, from family, from their communities, and from the state. And then in terms of answering number 2, right, name one specific thing that they do, right? You have a lot of options, right? So you can explore their prison organizing and advocacy. You can explore, you can even look at their jobs and internships to give you an idea of what they do. How you could get involved will give you that. You can click on their campaigns, right, and see what they do. No New Jails NYC, right? So that's a hashtag, but it's not just a hashtag. So what else are they doing, right? And why are they doing it? Housing rights, trans healthcare, no more isolation, right, in prisons. You can also see, what they do directly, the legal aid that they offer, and you can also see trainings. Right? I also encourage you to check out all their social medias as well, because sometimes the websites are a bit static and not necessarily up to date on the latest and greatest in terms of what they are doing and why they are doing it. So, explore their Twitters, explore their Instagrams, right? See why they're doing what they do, right? See who they repost and kind of think about how that connects to what the organization is all about. These are examples of gender justice in action. You will study yours all semester. And then at the very end of the semester, you'll create a presentation based on what you've been learning. If you're curious about some of these other organizations, that's okay, because at the end of the semester, you will be asked to explore the presentations of at least 2 other organizations other than your own. So you will leave the class knowing about 3 organizations, the one that you studied and 2 others that you choose to explore at the end of the semester based on the presentations that you make for your classmates. So after you complete your discussion board post, right, maybe breaking it up, doing the Unit 2 overview video, discussion board post in the first week or early on, and then maybe some of the readings, maybe not, maybe you save that for the second week. But task 3, right, is everything that I want you to read, to watch, and to hear, right? So this is the heart of this particular unit on feminist abolitionism and the right to family. I'm starting off with I'm asking you to read from the Bell Hooks book, Feminism is for Everybody, Passionate Politics. All I'm asking you to read, though, is the introduction and then the last chapter, which is entitled Visionary Feminism. You'll notice when you click on it, this is the entire book, right? I'm not asking you to read the full book. I'm only asking you to read the intro and this last chapter, Visionary Feminism, which starts on page 110. I give you access to the full book because Bell Hooks is a very, very well-known and well-respected Black feminist scholar, and she has authored, 20, 30 books. It's a very accessible book. It's very easy to read, easy to share. She purposely likes the fact that it is available for free online, right? She wants everybody to be able to access the work that she's doing, right? So I want you to read about this idea of visionary feminism, because that chapter really gets into how theorizing about the social world is not enough, and reacting to inequalities in the social world is not enough. That those things have to go together. We must take action and think. Our actions and thinking have to, coincide, right? That's visionary feminism. And when we talk about, and you might hear this word in other classes, when we talk about how activism and research go together, theorizing and thinking go together, that's what we call praxis, right? So we do something, we reflect on it, we theorize its outcomes, we do more actions, right? It's a cyclical, although a bit messy cyclical process. Feminist abolitionism is an example of actions, the actions that Bell Hooks talks about as visionary feminism. And we're doing that through a discussion of how that right to have children without worrying about them being killed by police. The second thing I want you to read is an interview with Kimberly Crenshaw, who you learned about in our last unit. She was the one who did the Urgency of Intersectionality video, right? So she co-founded the African American Policy Forum, and so she's reflecting on what intersectionality means more than 2 decades after she coined the term. Then I'm asking you to listen to a podcast that's actually Crenshaw's podcast called A Mother's Nightmare about someone who was killed by police. And then I want you to read an excerpt from a book called Prison by Any Other Name, The Harmful Consequences of Popular Reforms. Right? And so this chapter is called Policing Parenthood. It is through the John Jay Library, so when you'll click on it, you'll have to log into the library. It opens on the chapter, you're like, oh, it's blank. It's just because the chapter heading starts here. Okay. And so this chapter really goes through all the ways that what they call the prison industrial complex has invaded family life in the name of or helping save children. Prison industrial complex is a way of referring to all the offices, departments, services, supports that make up the prison system. So it's not just prisons, right? Like there are, it's policing, it's jails and prisons, it's the court systems, it's the social services and social workers, right, that are part of that as well, right? So it's not just one thing. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. All of that is really talking about, right, and this is an art piece about reproductive justice as a racial equity and equality issue, right? You deserve to parent your child without fear that he or she will be killed. Freedom from violence is reproductive justice. Right? Then I'm asking you to do just a couple other things. A short read. This is an excerpt from a book called We Do This Till We Free Us, Abolitionist Organizing and Transforming Justice. So for those of you, especially because we're at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and you're like, why am I reading about how horrible the criminal justice system is? We do that because that is the path forward, because that is the path towards freedom from violence, right? I have a lot of the intro here. All I'm asking you to read, right, is pages 2 through 5. I include the forewords because I think they're really interesting and informative, but they're optional. So if you want to read them, you can, right? So you're scrolling through, you're like, okay, what? Here's one foreword, right? You continue scrolling. Here's the editor's foreword. Then you get to what I actually want you to read. So what I want you to read is this part. So you're thinking about becoming an abolitionist. And this is the actual intro, right? So reading this piece, which again is like 3-4 pages, it really goes through a lot of the stereotypes that people have about what abolitionism is, feminist abolitionism, right? And so I encourage you to take your time with this. I also love things because it has first, second, third, right? So it's really like laying out very clearly what it would mean to, explore this path of abolitionism, right? Oftentimes people hear the word abolish, but that doesn't mean that we turn everything to rubble and don't build something else, right? So it really is about transformation. It really is about visionary feminism. And then finally, this is a very short video, 3-minute video with Loretta Ross, where she's explaining the origin of the phrase women of color. We often hear the term women of color or people of color today, and oftentimes it becomes shorthand for saying, whoever it is that we're actually referring to. So maybe we just mean black people, but people say people of color. Or maybe they mean black people, Latinx people, Asian American Pacific Islander people, indigenous people, Arab people, Middle Eastern people, right? Like the whole range, right, of everybody who's quote unquote not white. And so there's a laziness sometimes to the way that the term women of color and people of color gets used today. But its origin was very radical and very activist, and it was a way of bringing people together who shared in their experiences of racism, right? So even though, say, a Latina woman and a black woman are experiencing racism, it might be, it's different because of our different identities. And so women of color was really this activist term of bringing people together, and Loretta Ross was there when it happened. And so she explains, just in a 3-minute video, what it means and how it came about. Feminism in action. So this is what I want you to do for unit number 2, what I want you to read, watch, and hear. So starting off, with an excerpt from Bell Hook's book about feminism is for everybody, then really getting into feminist abolitionism as visionary feminism, exploring more of, reproductive justice is abolitionist justice, right? Exploring more about what abolitionist organizing and transformation means, right? And just going from there. I also have this, it's from a protest from many years ago now, a Black Lives Matter protest, because sometimes you hear people say, well, all lives matter, right? As this sort of, rebuttal to people saying Black Lives Matter. And that's really a very, racist thing to say, and I think that the sign very aptly explains why. Yes, all lives matter, but we're focused on the black ones right now, okay, because it is very apparent that our judicial system doesn't know that. Plus, if you can't see why we are exclaiming the Black Lives Matter, you are part of the problem. And so through our class, hopefully we move to this point of understanding how and why we have to pay attention to how racist violence, sexist violence, transphobic violence, right? These violences are built into our systems, the systems that shape our experiences of the social world. Then you'll do a quick facts check-in just to check in with yourself and assess how well you digested that material. Again, you can click here to launch. You can open it here. These, I hate that Blackboard calls it a test. Don't think of it as a test. It is multiple attempts allowed so you can fix wrong answers. It is short. It is, a chance for you to make sure that you understand what our authors are saying, right? You can save the test and resume it later, right? So I encourage you to go through the questions. There's 4 questions, right? Answer them to the best of your ability. And then after you submit it, it will show you, which questions you got right or wrong, along with some feedback from me. And then you can go back and fix any wrong answers. So no matter what, you can get 4 out of 4 on every quick facts check-in. That's it for unit number 2. Please reach out to me if you have any questions at all. You can email me, you can text me. I am happy to set up a one-on-one if you want me to, if it's easier to talk this way. We can do it via Skype, via Zoom, especially via Zoom if you want to show me some stuff on Blackboard and I can help walk you through it. Or we can do a simple phone call. I'm cool with any of them. I am here to support you in your journey. So any questions you have, any supports you're looking for, questions about John Jay even, right? Like I'm here to support you and make sure that Gen 205 is as successful as possible for you. So I will see you on Blackboard. Thanks so much for watching.